Story 1. The Silent Campsite. The gravel crunched beneath the tires as the old SUV rolled into Black Hollow Campgrounds, a remote, barely charted site nestled in the dense woods of northern Oregon. 5 friends, Aiden, Jess, Malik, Rachel, and Tyler, were escaping city life for a weekend of hiking beer, and the kind of no-wi-fi bonding they hadn't had since college. The place was hard to find, barely listed online and with only a few vague reviews, but that was exactly what they wanted. Something off the grid, untouched, quiet. And quiet it was. Too quiet. They pulled up to the clearing where half a dozen other campsites were scattered along a winding dirt path. But something was off. At the first site, a tent stood zipped up, with folding chairs still arranged around a cold fire pit. A half-drunk coffee thermos sat on the camp table, steam long gone. Another site had a canoe, upside down near the water's edge, but no footprints led to or from it. The cooler was open, ice melted, food untouched. At a third site, a children's book lay face down in the dirt, pages soggy from morning dew. And yet, not a soul in sight. Maybe they went hiking, Rachel suggested, though her voice betrayed doubt. There were no cars, no laughter, no crunching leaves or distant conversation. Just wind in the trees, and the occasional creak of strained canvas as tents swayed gently on their own. They chose the furthest site from the entrance, joking nervously about their luck. Hey, free real estate. But each of them sensed something was wrong. Still, they were tired. The sun was already dipping behind the tree line. They set up tents, got the fire going, and tried to shake the weirdness off with s'mores and shared beers. Night came heavy and fast in Black Hollow. By 10 p.m., the air had gone unnaturally still. The usual symphony of crickets and frogs fell silent. A low fog crept in from the trees, curling through the campsites like ghostly fingers. They told scary stories to break the tension, but the laughter felt thin, hollow. Then came the first voice. It was faint, just on the edge of the woods. "Jess? Jess, where are you?" it called. Jess froze, marshmallow stick midair. That sounded like me," she whispered. Tyler stood up, scanning the tree line. "Who's messing around?" "Malik, that's not funny." "It wasn't me," Malik said, standing beside him, voice dead serious. The voice came again, clearer this time. "Malik? Come help me. I think I'm lost." It was Rachel's voice now. But Rachel sat stiffly beside the fire, wide-eyed, clutching her knees. They extinguished the fire with a bucket of water, plunging the campsite into darkness. Their breath smoked in the cold air as they huddled together, flashlights scanning the woods. For a few minutes, everything went quiet again. Aiden whispered, "It's just echoes. Weird acoustics. Maybe there's someone else screwing with us." But then came the sound of footsteps. Their footsteps. The same cadence, the same weight, circling the tents. Twigs cracked just behind them, but no one was there when they turned their lights. Then they heard Tyler's laugh. It came from behind Tent 2. Tyler, who stood right next to them, didn't laugh. They retreated into the main tent, zipped the flap, and turned off all lights. No one spoke. The voices outside kept coming, now louder, more insistent. "Aiden, come here. I found something in the woods." "Rachel, please, don't leave me out here." "Let me in. Let me in." The voice grew distorted like it was underwater, or trying too hard to be human. Something brushed against the outside of the tent. A slow, dragging sound, like nails on canvas. Then silence. They barely slept. Morning came gray and wet, with mist still hugging the ground. They emerged to find the campsite unchanged, except for one thing. Their cooler was open, food still inside, but something had taken a bite out of every item as though sampling each one. And at the edge of the clearing in the dirt were 5 sets of footprints, identical to their own, heading into the woods. They packed in silence, barely speaking. As they drove away, each of them turned once to glance back at the campsite. Still empty, still silent. That night, back in the safety of their homes, the group messaged each other in a frenzy. Tyler sent a video. His doorbell camera had recorded something at 2:13 a.m. A figure, blurry and pale, standing just beyond the porch light. It didn't move, it didn't knock, but it whispered his name, in his voice. The forest that watches Noah had always preferred the solitude of nature. After a long stretch of work stress and a recent breakup, he decided to go off the grid for a few days. A solo camping trip in the heart of Wicker Pine Forest, miles away from cell towers, traffic noise, or any other soul. He craved silence, peace, isolation. The trailhead was barely marked, and by the time Noah reached the old ranger's clearing, now long abandoned, he was already several hours deep into untouched wilderness. The air was crisp, the scent of pine needles sharp in his lungs. He pitched his tent near a moss-covered log, built a modest fire, and let the forest wrap around him like a blanket. The first night was calm. Just the sounds of crickets, the occasional owl, and the crackling of his fire. He slept well, lulled by the natural rhythm of the woods. But on the second day, something changed. While hiking further into the trees, he noticed a carving on one of the trunks near his camp. A crude figure scratched deep into the bark with something sharp. It was childlike, just a stick man, but it had a distinct posture. Lying down, one arm behind its head, the other resting on its chest. It looked oddly familiar. Shrugging it off as some random backpacker's doodle, Noah returned to camp and forgot about it. But the next morning, there were more. 3 carvings, all different trees. All with the same stickman figure, but this time, it was clearer. The figure was lying on what looked like a sleeping bag. Noah's sleeping bag. He stood there, heart beating a little faster now, glancing from tree to tree, trying to make sense of it. Maybe a prank, but he hadn't seen anyone else for miles. Not a footprint, not a wrapper, nothing. That night, he slept with his knife close at hand. The forest no longer felt peaceful. It felt aware. By the 4th morning, the carvings had multiplied. Dozens. Some trees bore 2 or 3. Some figures now had distinct hair, even a beard, just like his. One had his cap. Another was drawn from the side, a little mound beneath the figure's head that resembled his backpack used as a pillow. But the worst was the one carved just 5 feet from his tent. It showed a figure lying down, and another figure standing over him. Noah didn't go hiking that day. He stayed near his fire, eyes scanning the tree line. He didn't eat, didn't read. He just listened. The forest made no sound. Even the birds had gone silent. Occasionally, he thought he saw movement, a flash between the trunks, a shadow that didn't belong, but whenever he looked, there was nothing. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat upright in his tent, clutching his flashlight, barely blinking. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined the carvings, imagined them watching. Imagined something stepping into camp and hovering over him while he slept. At some point, exhaustion won. He dozed off and woke to the sound of scratching. Not a twig breaking, not an animal call. Scratching. On bark. Close. He unzipped his tent just enough to peer outside. Nothing moved. But when he stepped out with his flashlight, something new had been left for him. A carving, still fresh. The bark still curling where the blade had sliced. It was a drawing of his tent, detailed now. Detailed enough to show the logo on the side. Inside the tent, the stickman slept. And beside the tent, another figure, Eyes too big, arms too long, watching. Noah didn't pack his things. He ran. He left behind his tent, his gear, even his wallet. He didn't care. He ran through the trees, crashing through brambles, branches clawing at his face, breath ragged in his lungs. He didn't stop until he reached his car, parked miles away at the trailhead. He didn't look back once. Weeks later, safe in his apartment back in the city, Noah tried to convince himself it was just isolation messing with his head. Maybe he carved those figures in a fugue state. Maybe someone else had been camping nearby, just screwing with him. But then, 3 days later, he got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a small square of bark, with a carving of him at his desk in his apartment, sleeping. Story 3. The Taped Tent. It was supposed to be a romantic escape. Just Leah, Mason, and the untouched wilderness of Pinebrook Forest. They had chosen a remote hiking trail they'd read about on a local survivalist blog, the kind that didn't show up on tourist maps. No cell signal, no crowds, just a long weekend of campfires, starry skies, and each other. By the third day, they'd ventured farther than planned, following an overgrown game trail that led them deeper into the woods. The forest grew quieter out there, heavier somehow. The trees pressed in closer, their branches webbed with moss and lichen. They were about to turn back when Leah spotted something just ahead. Bright blue fabric half hidden among the trees. "A tent?" she said, squinting. Mason stepped forward, brushing past the ferns. It was a tent, a large one, military style with reinforced corners and weatherproof fabric. Except it wasn't weather that had sealed it shut. The entrance was covered in duct tape, long, thick strips crisscrossing over the zippered flap, layer after layer, as if whoever sealed it wanted to make absolutely certain no one, or nothing, could get in, or out. It was a tent, a large one, military style with reinforced corners and weatherproof fabric. Except it wasn't weather that had sealed it shut. The entrance was covered in duct tape, long, thick strips crisscrossing over the zippered flap, layer after layer, as if whoever sealed it wanted to make absolutely certain no one, or nothing, could get in, or out. "Okay, that's weird," Mason muttered, circling the structure. Weird was putting it lightly. The tent looked new, untouched by rain, mold, or sun damage. The surrounding ground was undisturbed. No footprints, no gear, no signs of a campfire or food wrappers. Maybe someone was storing gear, Leah suggested, though she didn't sound convinced. Or sealing it up for winter? Mason shook his head. Then why the tape? They stood there a while, staring at it. The forest around them was still. Not quiet, but still. The kind of stillness that made every bird call, every distant crack of a branch, feel unnatural. Too loud, too placed. Curiosity bloomed. Stupid, dangerous curiosity. "We could just peek inside," Mason said finally. "Make sure no one's in trouble or something." Leah hesitated, then nodded. They carefully peeled back the tape, cutting it with a pocket knife. It came away in long, tacky strips, revealing the zipper underneath. With a deep breath, Mason unzipped the flap. The smell hit them first, like mildew and copper, damp fabric, and something faintly sweet. Rotten sweet. Inside was darkness. Not just shadow, but thick, velvety black. Like light didn't want to go in. Leah turned on her flashlight. What the beam revealed made her gasp. There were blankets laid out, neatly, a pillow, a journal, several unopened water bottles, a small camping stove, and a Polaroid camera. Dozens of photos were scattered across the floor. Leah picked one up. It was a picture of the tent. From the outside, then another. The tent again. This time, the tape halfway peeled off. Mason bent down, slowly lifting another photo from the pile. It was of them, standing outside the tent. Leah's breath caught. "That's us," she whispered. "But this was taken minutes ago." There was no time to speak, no time to think. Something shifted in the darkness at the back of the tent, a rustling sound, soft and wet. The flashlight flickered, then surged back to life. A figure stood at the back wall, barely visible, human-shaped, but wrong. Too thin, too tall, its skin pale like wax, its face covered, wrapped in tape, layers and layers of duct tape, except for one small hole where a mouth should be. And it was breathing, shallow, raspy, and growing faster. Leah screamed. They bolted out of the tent, Mason grabbing her wrist, not even bothering to zip it back shut. They ran. No trail, no direction, just away. They didn't stop until they hit a stream and collapsed, breathless, shaking. Behind them, the forest was still quiet. Too quiet. They never found the tent again. Not when they went back with rangers. Not on satellite maps. Gone, like it was never there. But that night, in the safety of their apartment, Leah found something strange in her backpack. A Polaroid. Fresh. Undamaged. It showed her and Mason sleeping in their tent, and just behind the tent, that same tall figure, watching, waiting, still wrapped in tape,